Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host, Gersh1, and today we're going to be talking about the Space Marines. This is an introduction to the Space Marines. Now, of course, going into this, I am assuming that you guys have some background knowledge of the Space Marines. If you don't, we have another Space Marine video out there, so check out our library. But let's get into 40 facts about the Space Marines. Space Marines are genetically modified superhuman soldiers. They are the elite warriors of the Imperium of Man and a playable race in the Warhammer 40k game. Space Marines have been one of the starter armies in every single edition of Warhammer 40k, Space Hulk, and Epic. Space Marines are the most popular playable army for the tabletop Warhammer 40k game. In terms of playing style, Space Marines are a versatile army that neither excels nor fails at any particular tactic, though certain chapters do have variant rules which might lean towards a certain tactic. Space Marines are warrior monks from the time of their initiation to their death. They spend their entire lives fighting in the name of the God Emperor. Space Marines are also called Astartes. They have been physically enhanced with organ implants that ultimately derive from the Emperor's own flesh. Space Marines are untouched by plague or any natural disease, and can suffer wounds that would kill a lesser being several times over, and live to fight another day. In the beginning, the Emperor of Mankind created the Primarchs, 20 genetically engineered superhumans possessing immense physical and psychic powers, to aid him in the conquest of the galaxy and the protection of mankind. Created from modified stock of his own DNA, each Primarch's genome serves as a template for a legion of Space Marines. Space Marines can trace their origins back to the unification wars on Terra in the late 30th millennium, when the Emperor of Mankind first revealed his existence and led regiments of deadly genetically engineered soldiers known as Thunder Warriors. Thunder Warriors are named for their early Thunderbolt and Raptors symbol, used by their master in the Imperium's earliest days. The Emperor led the Thunder Warriors to unify Terra and begin to re-establish the Imperium of Man. This time of fighting, like we said before, was called the Unification Wars. Thunder Warriors were far from perfect. Some were mentally unstable. Others suffered catastrophic biological failure after an unprecedented span of years as their own superhuman physiques turned against them in the end. That is why the Emperor began creating the next generation of warriors, deep in his Terran fortress beneath the Himalayan mountains on Terra. The first Space Marines were hand-picked men drawn from the Emperor's personal bodyguards. These volunteers were subject to surgical, genetic, and psychological modifications, created from what the tech priests learned when enhancing the Thunder Warriors. The first Space Marines were organized into 20 distinct regiments, numbering no more than a few hundred warriors each. They wore gray heresy armor and were known as the Grey Legion. As each regiment found its chapter Primarch, they gained their distinct colors and grew in numbers. With the rediscovery of the Primarchs, the Imperium of Man expanded in what is now known as the Great Crusade. More and more Space Marines were required to conquer and defend the empire that was being rediscovered. The increased need of Space Marines meant that the gene seed used to create them was being stretched thin. This led to deviations within the Space Marines. In order to fix this, the Grabia's theorem was created, which demonstrated that the Primarch's genetic code could be used to stabilize and expand the Astarte gene seed stock, with hopes that there would be minimal deviation. The theorem could not keep up with the need of the Space Marines. Many Imperial savants have come to believe that the drive to create larger Space Marine legions at an accelerated speed played a prime role in the degradation of the sanity and psychological makeup of certain legions. At some point, a number of Primarchs and their legions switched over to the worship of the evil Chaos Gods and rebelled against the Emperor. This led to the creation of the Chaos Space Marines. This was known as the Horus heresy. If you want to learn more about the Horus heresy, please check out our Horus heresy fact video. Before the Horus heresy, Space Marines were divided into 20 legions, each under a Primarch who was appointed by the Emperor of Mankind. Following the Horus heresy, the first founding Space Marine legions were broken up into smaller chapters. This was called the Second Founding. This was to prevent any future major rebellions. There are approximately 1,000 Space Marine chapters active in the Imperium of Man at any one time. Space Marine chapters contain about 1,000 Space Marines plus an unspecified number of initiates and support staff. If a chapter grows larger than 1,000 Space Marines, the Imperium may order it to split into smaller chapters. This rule was enforced after the Horus heresy to prevent the mobilization of a force that could lead a rebellion against the Emperor. There are only 4 chapters which have numbers exceeding 1,000 Space Marines: the Black Templars, the Exorcists, Grey Knights, and the Space Wolves. There have been 25 subsequent foundings of new chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, with the most recent, the 26th founding, occurring approximately 250 standard years ago. Even before a new founding is announced, entire generations of Imperial servants may have to toil in preparation. Once the process has declared and is underway, it is likely to be at least a standard century before the new chapter begins combat operations. Each Space Marine chapter is a fully integrated military unit possessing starships, aircraft, and landing vehicles. The Adeptus Mechanicus plays an essential role in the process of a founding, for it is their highest members that are tasked with creating, testing, and developing the gene seed samples that will provide a genetic foundation of the new chapter. A chapter's main headquarters is its fortress monastery, which could either be a citadel on a planet, space hulk, or a large starship. The construction of a chapter's fortress monastery may be one of the greatest undertakings of all, drawing on the genius of the Imperium's most accomplished military architects and engineers. Each chapter is led by a chapter master. Chapter masters rank among the Imperium's highest elite. They are one of the few people with the authority to order the annihilation of a planet. Each chapter is independent. There is no higher authority that commands all Space Marines. Nonetheless, any chapter may be subject to census or even excommunication by the Inquisition should it waver in its duty to the Emperor. In time of dire need for the Imperium, faster development of Space Marine chapters has been attempted, but this has often resulted in disaster, like mutated gene seed and chaos corruption. Space Marines are organized into 3 main types of squads: Tactical, Assault, and Devastator. Each of these squads has a unique battlefield role and is designed to operate together to provide mutual support and maximize flexibility. Many cultures on the more primitive worlds worship Space Marines as demigods or angels of the God Emperor made flesh. They are often known to such people as Star Warriors or Sky Knights. Space Marines fall victim to hubris. They feel little compassion for those they have sometimes termed mortals in comparison to themselves, seeing the very people they were created to protect as little more than obstacles to a more efficient eradication of the Imperium's enemies. Most Imperial Guard troopers will never see a Space Marine, let alone fight alongside one, and as such they are the subject of all manners of legends, myth, and superstition. Possibly the most prominent feature of a Space Marine is their power armor, which is a synthesis of many technologies that predate even the Age of Strife. And those were 40 facts about the Space Marines. Now, of course, the Space Marine lore is enormous, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to check out part 2. Check out the channel for the Space Marine initiation video. And of course, thank you if you are already a subscriber. You share, you like, and you comment, and all that really helps out the channel. So thank you so much, and stay tuned for more awesome lore. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.